Hey guys, welcome back to the Cast and Spear podcast. Today we have Nick Heid from surffishing.socalsd.com, an awesome surf fisher here in Southern California. Today we're going to be covering surf fishing rigs from light line to sharking. What's up, Nick?
Nothing much. What's going on?
So I know we talked yesterday about Carolina rigs. Is that your primary light line surf fishing rig, or do you have, fish finder rigs and other variants?
Yeah, when it comes to fishing the surf, I am almost 100% going to use a Carolina rig all the time. And I know you said you had fished a few times in the surf growing up. What rig did you end up using?
Primarily, it was a Carolina rig with a bullet weight and number six and a sand crab. Uh, Lately, I've been using a lot of like spider hitches and testing out some different drop shots, but primarily, I almost always like the Carolina rig.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just. I mean, I did. So I wrote a whole article on why I use the Carolina rig, and that's the biggest thing for me was one. It's super simple. Anybody and everybody knows how to tie a Carolina rig. If you know how to tie a fishing knot, you're good. But the biggest thing is the sensitivity because I think like starting out, one of my buddies, we'd always just go out. We had no idea what we're doing, like everybody else starting. He actually would use a traditional just three-way, where he's got a pyramid on one strand coming down from a three-way swivel, and then the other one is a hook. And I look at that, and while it worked, you don't have the sensitivity that you need. And I know there are other rigs out there that do provide sensitivity, but if you look at the mechanics of a Carolina rig, you've got your main line, which goes straight to a swivel, which doesn't interrupt whatever feel might be there because you've got a sliding weight on that. And that sliding weight, if you can provide proper tension where you're not pulling the weight, but just pulling the swivel right up to the weight, when a fish finally does take that hook, you're gonna feel everything. Unless somehow there's from that swivel to your hook just some slack that's gonna stop it. But for the most part, I can't think of any better designed rig to feel perfect tension unless you're just fly lining. And even then, you don't know how much slack is in there.
So then you
So,
said that you use fluoro. Have you noticed a difference between a mono and a fluoro leader on the Carolina rig?
no, but the way I look at that is I only use fluorocarbon for my leader. It's going to cost me one spool per year. And I know it's more expensive, but it's not by much if you're only using a spool a year. And I honestly get the Seeger Red Label from either Amazon or Walmart if I find it for cheaper. And I think it's like 200 yards for 12 bucks. But the way I look at it is, hey, if there is for any reason this fish that's cruising by that it doesn't want to see as much line, then great, I'm prepared for it. If not, whatever, I'm still prepared for it. I don't think fish are line shy as much as people think they are. I think fish are people shy. I think the biggest thing when all these specifically sight casting fishermen, when they get out there, they're thinking, shoot, you got to have that 4 to 8 pound test. And to some degree, I agree. I think if you're sight casting, you got to pay a little more attention. But I think the biggest thing is that weight hitting the ground because Corbina with their barbels, they're gonna feel your feet hitting the ground, let alone picture a 1 ounce weight slamming down next to it. They're gonna feel that vibration for sure. But so the only thing I would change in sight casting is I would possibly lower my weight to a half ounce or maybe less. But I don't ever really go out there just expecting to sight cast. I kind of like to be prepared for whatever, whenever. But the fluorocarbon, my main reasoning is, hey, if it works, great. If not, I got it. So
And then what knots do you like to do for your junctions?
I just use for everything unless I'm doing a line to line in my shark rig. I just do the what is it, enhanced clinch knot or
Improve clinch.
improved clinch knot. Yeah.
Tried and true.
I
It's never let me
yeah,
down.
there's nothing wrong with it. And I know it's so of all the clients that I've had or all the people that I've taken out, um, the only other one that's as popular as that is the Palomar. So if that's your knot, great. It's there's no problem there. Realistically, I don't think I think if your knot holds, obviously you're good. And I don't think there are. I'd say stick with those two knots unless you have good reason for another one. But yeah, those are solid.
I dig it. So let's bump up into more of the hardcore riggings. What do you do for your bigger game?
So the bigger game, um, and I do have all those outlined on the website, but it's gonna be. You want me to start with the rod and reel or just the rig?
No, start with rod and reel.
Okay, so rod is gonna be a 12-foot heavy rod. From the 12-foot rod, and the idea with the 12-foot rod, you can go as low as 9 feet. I wouldn't go much lower because you're typically gonna put these in a rod holder, and you're actually, for the most part, I fish light line while I'm sharking. I'll just leave it out there. But your rod, biggest thing is you want to be able to cast out a further distance, which longer rods help. And then what most people don't think about is when you have it in that rod holder, that water, the shallow water right in front of you is gonna hold some seaweed, gonna hold some kind of just turbulent currents and stuff. You want to try and keep that line above that area as best you can. So a longer rod will keep it higher above there, which helps out a lot in terms of keeping your bait out there for longer periods of time. So the rod, 12 to 13 feet is good. The reel, I've used a 6,000 series for, gosh, the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years. I've used a 6,000 series with no problems at all. Just this last year, I got an 8,000 series. And the way I look at it now is like, why not have the bigger reel? You can hold more line. So I'm liking that. I think my next purchase is going to be another 8,000. But the 6,000 series reel with 50-pound braid, and I prefer Power Pro. I'll use 50-pound braid, fill it about a third to half full. Usually about a half is no. I'd stick with a half. I think I use a half to 2/3 actually. And fill that up there, and then the rest is going to be 50-pound mono. And the idea with the mono there, the braid is you want to hold as much line as you can with a thinner diameter. The mono, you want the abrasion resistance. So a lot of these sharks, if you've ever felt a leopard shark, you've caught a couple, you've caught a soup, huh?
Yep, I've caught a 65-pound soup, and I used mono for that guy, and then I've caught plenty of leopards as well.
Okay, and then you said you got tail whipped through on one of them, huh?
On the first soup fin that I lost, I definitely got tail whipped, and it broke me off right away.
So do you remember feeling the skin on the one you caught? It's okay if you
Oh, the
don't.
one I caught, yeah, I've touched a number of sharks. I mean, that's sandpaper.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason you want to use the mono, and that's for the abrasion resistance. And then the funny thing is, after losing a few sharks on that, I actually upped another. I basically put another segment of line in between that and my rig. So after the 50-pound mono, I actually have about 3 to 4 feet of 100-pound nylon coated mono, and that I just attached via a heavy swivel because that swivel's staying outside of my last eyelet even when I'm casting. And then from there, that should deal with most of the abrasion. And you'll even notice there after a good fight, that line's going to be pretty torn. But after that piece of line there, I use 90-pound wire lead with 7/0 circle hook. And the weight you can use whatever you want in really mellow conditions. I use pyramids, just 8-ounce pyramids, but sometimes the surf is just too much and the current's too much. If seaweed's too much, screw it. You're not going to be able to do it. But if any sort of rough conditions, I'm using what people call either Sputniks or spider weights, and 6 ounces. So it's definitely a completely different game, but it's a lot of fun. And the way I see it sometimes is why not? If the conditions are great, you can do everything light line at the same time. So it's
Yeah, I
pretty
like
cool.
that. I like that dual kind of fishing. One
Yeah,
for the waiting, one for the active. And then, do you ever use pulley rigs? Those are pretty
I don't.
popular.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know one guide up in Orange County who just swears by those things. For some reason, I haven't. I think the biggest thing, one, if it works, don't touch it, right? Like I've been using this and it works. But two, something about the just the connection and putting the weird, because when there's tension there, it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a swivel connection that isn't like a supernatural kind of. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when.
Yeah, I get it. It's a different design. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I think they're pretty cool because I like the clip down aspect. If you're going to be hucking out a big piece of bait, like instead of having
Mm,
something that's kind of flailing around in the air, it kind of keeps everything streamlined until it hits, and then when it hits, it pops off, and then when it sinks down, you know, the weight is kind of hanging up or hanging on the bottom, and then the bait's hanging. And then when the shark or whatever grabs it, it kind of just pulls the weight straight up, or roughly straight up, so that it's not catching. Because you know, using the
Yeah.
Sputnik, and then hopefully that weight is kind of almost like how a Carolina would be in line, and then that shark is off the bottom, so it doesn't snag.
Yes.
Whereas like a pyramid potentially could get hung up, and but at that point, I mean, you're rigging it so that it breaks off. So I think it's just, I like what you said. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I don't know if there's like a crazy difference in like hookup rates or whatnot. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, just something to
Yeah.
experiment with.
Yeah, and another tough thing, it's tough to even kind of get a feel for whether the hookup rates are better, because like just an example, last season was, I think, one of the best seasons for leopard sharks ever. One, I don't keep any sharks, just to throw that out there. I'll catch and release. But over 48 inches, I got I think 101 last season. And this season, I know we're not done. It's mid-July, but I think I'm only at between soups and leopards, maybe 25 or about 25. But a lot more soups than leopards, which is cool because those things, they go airborne and they're a lot of fun to watch. But
Well,
yeah.
I hope that just means you're getting tuna from shore. You know, with how crazy things have been right now, I wouldn't be surprised
I've
at this
heard
point.
5 miles off, huh?
Jeez, it's been nuts. Okay, I think that's a perfect place to stop. Tomorrow we are going to actually be going super deep into sharking, because this is a topic that I don't get to talk about too much, and I enjoy it. So, all right, guys, see you on the next one. Hey, one more thing before you go. Are you looking for other folks who like to catch fish? Well, if you are, join our free fish catchers group on Discord. Just like a little club, just with like-minded people who like to catch fish, share knowledge. Just head over to castandspear.com/club for a link, and it'll go straight over there. Whether you like to spearfish, surf fish, kayak fish, you name it. If you just like to catch fish, we want to chat. All right, see you guys in there.